Well, hi, it's Daniel D, Ventriloquist here, and by now we're getting well on our way through this little video course to help you become a ventriloquist. We've talked about all sorts of things in regard to ventriloquism, puppets, interaction with puppets, character of the puppets, and of course how to speak without moving your lips, which is kind of key, and also we've touched on, and we'll go into more detail later, the development of puppet character and how to use two puppets together or two puppet characters together. And as I say, that might be a mask and a puppet or two masks or whatever. And we'll cover those in more detail soon. We've also started to look at the difficult letters to say. We've looked at m, b and p, and we've talked about the position of our tongue just behind our top and bottom teeth, so that we get the sounds d, t and n. And hopefully by now you've done some practice and you're becoming a little more confident in saying that. Don't worry, don't beat yourself up if it's not comfortable yet. You will develop the muscle memory whereby you are able to say them clearly, or as clearly, remember, as needed to create the illusion. Because when you talk and when you're performing, you talk at a fairly normal pace. As I say to my children, talk slowly when you're on stage, and if you feel like you're going slow, slow down even more. But even so, you're not using isolated syllables or isolated letters in your speech. And as I said before, you don't look at each other and go b, p, m. You put those letters. Well, you could do, I suppose, now that you're proficient. You might look a bit daft though. But you use those letters in words, and actually more than that, in sentences. And when you say sentences, everything sort of melts together. It becomes a blur, but we still understand each other. And that, as I've said before, is exactly what we're doing with our puppet. We're creating an illusion of a group of sounds being stuck together that form words in a slightly different way, but they're the same words. So we've looked at m, b and p. Now the next two letters, as I said last time, that we want to look at are the f and the v sounds, f and v. Now I think these are quite tricky sounds, and I have to admit, and I talked about this in the introduction, I had to admit that when I learnt ventriloquism, the way I was taught to do f and v sounds is not the way I actually do it, because I found that I wasn't convinced by that. And in fact there are vents out there that I watch performing that do it differently to me. And in fact, you know, what you should never do is go up to a vent and say, oh, by the way you pronounce your F's and V's. Actually, what I'd recommend is, because they've found their way and it works for them and it's convincing for them, I found my way and that's what I'm happy with. So you develop your own way, and as I said before, adjust the methods that I'm giving you to suit your own style, your own physiology, and your own puppet characters as well. So let's have a think about v and f, or if you want to do it alphabetically, f and v. Now these are both sounds where you do use your lips to form the letter f. Great way to do this is watch a cartoon, a good cartoon where they form the shape of the mouth, or even something like a stop frame animation where they form the shape of the mouth into letters. And what you'll often see is the top teeth coming down to meet the bottom lip, f, and it's much more pronounced on a puppet or a cartoon character, f, v. And again, like the p and the b, one of those sounds uses just breath, and one of the sounds uses the vocal cords as well. So f is just air passing between your lips, v is the air passing between your lips and sound from your vocal cords as well. So how do we make that sound? Well, let's have a think for a moment. I've talked about how we make it in normal speech, but let's just break it down, because when we're speaking normally to our friends or to ourselves or to whomever, we don't actually think, right, I am now going to form a f sound, so therefore I need to position my teeth close to the bottom lip, like this. and then I need to blow air between my lips, like this. No, if you did that, you'd be speaking extremely slowly, you'd probably spit in your friend's face, and you wouldn't have friends for very much longer. So we're not doing that. We just form the shape and we carry on. But for the purposes of learning this, I want you to think exactly of how you make that sound. So let's have a look at f. And again, it's an isolated sound. It doesn't make much sense, but let's say fish. Fish. So our lips, our teeth, meet our lower lip, and sound passes through between our teeth and our lips. So what we've got to do is replicate that without touching our bottom lip. And it sounds easy to do. Surely if you just force air between your lips, you'll get a first sound, but you don't really. And this is where illusion comes in again. What I tend to find I do is something similar to just letting air pass between my lips, and I pronounce the f sound quite quickly. So it's fish, fish, fish. And when you do that, you don't say words in isolation, you say them as part of a sentence. Have you fed the fish today? Are the fish hungry? Fish. And I will occasionally, I'm sure, have some movement in my lips just to get the f sound out. Don't worry about this, it's an illusion. And I'll tell you what, let's bring Hadley into the scene. Come on, Hadley. Now, Hadley. Yeah? I've just been talking... Sort your legs out, what are you doing? I don't know, I've got no control over my legs at all, it's terrible. I know it is, but, you know, just get yourself comfortable. Are you alright? Yeah, I'm comfortable now, yeah, I'm alright. Right, now, Hadley, I've just been talking to everybody out there. Hello? Hello out there? Hey! Oh, there's loads of them. You can't even tell that. I know that I can tell on the likes. Yeah, look. Hey! 3 likes! Yes, Hadley. We've been talking about the f sound. Yeah, f. Yeah, alright. F. Yeah. And we've been talking about the v sound. Right. The. Yeah. Now, those are quite difficult sounds because they're hard to do without putting our teeth on our lips. Look. Yeah? Alright, yeah, okay. I haven't got any teeth though. And well, I know you haven't, but it's just, you know, it's me that's doing the talking. Yeah, sometimes. Most of the time, though, this is what I told you. Yeah, get ready. Most of the time, he makes me do all the talking, and he just stands there like an idiot. Well, I'm going to say like an idiot. He is an idiot. So thank you, Hadley. Goodness sake. You need to learn manners. Right, Hadley, I know that it's hard. Why? Because it's hard to say manners. Hey, because it's got a m sound. Oh, you've learned there, haven't you? Yes, we have. Right, sorry about this. This is a problem when you're working with puppets. They ad lib. It's terrible. So, zip it. Yes, and let's carry on. So, first sound. Now, Hadley, could you say fish, please? Okay. Cod. That's not what I mean. All right. Haddock. No, Hadley, no, please. Can you... I want you to say the word fish. Right. Goldfish. I suppose that includes the word fish. And actually, that's a good example, goldfish. Well done. I know. I thought of it all by myself. I know you did. Goldfish is a good example because it's a compound word. It uses the word gold and the word, anybody? Fish. That's right. And so what you're doing is you're blending that f sound into the middle of a word. So it becomes less obvious. And if I said gold kish, you would still think I was saying goldfish. No, I wouldn't. Hadley, I'm not talking to you for a moment. What I'm talking about is the illusion of creating a sound. All right. Are you doing that? Yes, I am. That's exactly what we're talking about. You're creating an illusion of sound. Yes. Oh, that's why I can't hear you then. No, I'm quite audible. People can hear me. I can't. Hadley, what is wrong with you? Have you not washed your ears out? No, it's my ears, you see. What's wrong with your ears? They need a cloth. Cloth ears. They're useless. Sorry about this. Let's get back to fish and goldfish. So, Hadley, can you say goldfish? Please behave. Do it properly. We're trying to help people. Okay, yeah, right. Goldfish. That's right. So let's analyse that. Let me analyse that for you. What I said was gold, fish. And what I do is I put, this will surprise you, I put my tongue actually against my bottom, the back of my bottom teeth. Like that. Goldfish, fish. And I pull my tongue to the back of my, not right to the back of my mouth, but towards the back of my mouth. So it works like this. Goldfish, fish. And actually fish is a nice word because it's got a sh sound, so we're using our tongue as well. But let's think of a sound with a different letter at the end. That. Oh, that has a different sound. It's not a f, it's a the sound. That. So actually that's a bit stupid, isn't it? That's not, Hadley, why did you even say that? I never said a word. You're putting thoughts into my mind. This is what I've been telling people, that you and me together, you ad lib, you make stuff up, you put me off. Now stop. Maybe a slightly easier way of thinking about it. What are you nodding for? Because I agree with you. You don't know what I'm saying yet. All right. In fact, let's say this. Maybe an easier way of doing this is by putting your puppet down in a darkened box so he doesn't interrupt. You want me to do that? No, not really. Well, sit there and behave. So, maybe an easier way of explaining this is that the f sound is very similar to a th sound, except you make the th sound with your tongue, yes, behind your bottom teeth. Th, like that. So what you're doing is you're saying th, but slightly more subtly. Keep your tongue inside your mouth, just behind your bottom teeth. Are you ready, Hadley? Yeah, I'm ready. Say fish. So actually, if you listen to that, analyse that on a spectrometer, or I don't even know what's a spectrometer? Oh, a spectrometer is this thing, right? Yes. That it tells you? Yes. I don't know. How should I know? I don't think I even mean spectrometer. Anyway, I think that's something to do with chemicals. So if you were to analyse the sound that I'm making there, fish, it would actually probably be more similar on that analysis machine to fish. But if you say it quickly and with conviction, it actually sounds more like fish. Let's have another go. Fish. How many fish have we got in our fish tank? Fish. So it's again creating an illusion. Now in order, are you ready for this one? Yeah, what one? Well, I'm going to do the next letter, the sound. In order to do a the sound, you're basically doing essentially the same thing. Instead of saying th, you're saying the, as in the word that, or something like that. So what we're saying there is the. Now let's think of a word that begins with the. Can you think of any, Hadley? What was the question again? The question was, can you think of any words that begin with the? Yeah. No, not really. No, okay. Well, let's just pronounce our letter the. And again, you're creating an illusion. So if you were to analyse it on a spectrometer, can't be a spectrometer, can it? No, it's something to do with sound. A phonometer. That's it. It's a phonometer. The analysis of sound. Perfect. Somebody could invent a phonometer for me. What you would hear is the, not the. But it doesn't matter because we're creating that sound as part of another sound. So let's think of a really complicated word, velocity. Can you say velocity? Yeah, of course I can. Look, velocity. Hey, easy is velocity. And actually what I'm saying, to be truthful, is velocity. Keeping my tongue behind my bottom teeth. I know it's easy for you to do that. Well, it's not actually that easy, Hadley. I know that at least you've got a tongue. I've got nothing. All right. The good thing about your mouth, yeah, what? Is that you've got no teeth, yeah, no tongue, yeah, and therefore no dribble, huh? Yeah, I know, it's good, isn't it? I can't stick though. Well, that's a good thing, Hadley. back to the V sound. Velocity, velocity, velocity. Yeah, the velocity of the then was really fast. Really, 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 really fast. It was. Well, apparently. So, that's another 2 letters to practice. The F sound and the Th sound. And the V sound. Both using a th. But with your tongue, it's a mantra now, isn't it? Behind your bottom teeth. Tongue behind the bottom teeth. And what you're doing is a th and a the, but it comes out as the. Fish, then. Fish, velocity. Fish, velocity, and oh, hey, fish, velocity. Oh, no, I know. What, Hadley? Velocity fish, the fastest fish in the world. Yeah, hey, velocity fish. You silly boy. In this little sequence, I'm going to include the last letter that I really want us to work on, because this last letter, just hang on, you just lie down a minute, Hannah, you can have a little rest. The last letter, because I don't want to do a separate video for this letter, the last letter I want to work on is the W sound, W. Now you might think that W is just W, and it's not that complicated, but I'm going to tell you the truth. It is. It's tricky. And the tricky thing with the W sound is that it uses your lips form a shape. If you think about saying, think about the word wah wah. You know, when you have a wah wah pedal for a guitar, it's making that sound. The wah wah. That's an onomatopoeic word, apparently, whatever that is. It's making a sound, and the way it does that is by your lips opening, wah, and letting the sound form a different shape as it. And if anybody can explain why it does that, I think it's something to do with the shape of your mouth, like a trumpet, bell. But I've actually no idea, because I'm not a linguist. But as you open your mouth, wah, making the w sound, wah, you notice the change in the tone of that letter, wah. So the challenge is to make that sound without having to open your lips. This isn't a plosive where your lips are closed to begin with and sound is forced through them, or it's not even like an M sound where you can very simply move your tongue behind your lower teeth and make the illusion of the same sound. With a W sound, you have to do something slightly different. And again, when I learned ventriloquism, it was recommended to me to do a certain thing, to say more, not just say a w, but say a oo. And so you were almost saying a oo first. And for me, that wasn't comfortable, because that made a single syllable sound into a 2-syllable sound, not w, but oo. And that didn't work for me. So again, what I knew I had to do was create the illusion of saying a w sound. Now, there is a way that for quite a little while, when I first started, I did this, and that was to use words that didn't start with W, because then I didn't have to worry about it. Because if the W comes in the middle of a word, it's not too bad. But when it's at the beginning of a word, it's a bit more tricky. So how do we do this? Let's think of a word. Oh, I'm looking at the window. Window. So what you have to do is make a W sound without moving your lips. Now, you can't say indo. You can't use your tongue at the back of your teeth. Dingo. Dingo. Dindo. You've got to do something else. Now, I do a similar, very similar thing to what I was taught, but I try to keep it as one syllable. Let's try a little sentence, actually. The window was dirty. The window was dirty. I'm almost saying, actually, the rindo. And to be honest with you, some people pronounce their R's as W's, don't they? So it's almost like I'm doing that. The window was dirty. The window was dirty. But what I'm doing is I'm flattening my tongue towards the bottom of my mouth. Window, window, window. And it's quite a strange thing to try and explain. So what I'm doing is I'm putting my tongue at the back of my mouth and pushing it forward slightly. Window, window. And actually to say a w is very easy. W sounds a bit like a r. But to say the w sound in a word like window, it actually makes, for me, it makes it easier because you're putting it into context. So therefore your audience is listening to the whole word, not just the letter. Window. So I'm starting with my tongue quite far back in my mouth. Window. And if I exaggerate that, so I'm almost swallowing my own tongue, not a good thing to do on stage, what I'm doing is I'm starting with a R and then developing that into a E. That's a bit exaggerated, but speed it up a little bit. It's like this. Window. Or window. So that's how I do it, and I don't think there's very much movement in my lips at all. But again, as you're speaking and as your puppet's speaking, the focus of the audience is on your puppet's mouth, so therefore that's what you need to worry about. Keep him moving, keep him active, and they won't hear your strange w sounds. But practice anyway. Get it as clearly as you can so that people don't notice the difference. And again, as I've said right from the beginning, this is about practice in front of the mirror till it becomes second nature, and that's exactly what I want it to become for you, because learning the skills is one thing, and again we talked about it being like a foreign language. You can learn language in the classroom, but when you get out there and speak to people in this foreign language, that's when it becomes real, and that's when you realise that people can understand you. That's when you realise that people are watching your puppet, not you. And that's when children come up to you after the show and say, "I didn't see your lips moving," which is a really great compliment. So we've talked about what letters: a p sound and a b sound, which is when your tongue touches both your top teeth and your bottom teeth, just slightly behind the tooth. We've talked about a m sound, where your tongue touches your bottom teeth, but in a more relaxed and a slightly slower way. N. Very similar to a n sound, but your tongue is slightly lower down in your mouth. And we've talked about the f and the v sounds, which is, again, your tongue near the bottom teeth, and it's very similar to a th sound and a the sound, but with your tongue lower in the mouth. Th, the, the faster than. Okay? And we've also just now talked about the w sound, and I want you to practice that as much as you can. And also watch ventriloquists as they speak and pronounce the w sound, and you'll see some interesting variations on how you might be able to do that. And I know I do it differently to other people. Window was dirty. The window was washed. The window was washed. The faster you speak, the less activity and movement there needs to be in your mouth. So those are the most complicated letters. Let's say them again. B, P, V, F and W. 5 letters. The other letters, as they fit together in words, will start to be, they'll be the easy thing. They'll be the thing that encourages you that you can do this. Now, as I said right at the beginning, there are also letter combinations that I certainly found quite difficult, especially with the plosives, the p and the b, but particularly p. If I had to say p-l, like please, that's a tricky one, because you say your tongue is at the bottom of your mouth, tl, to do the t, and then you've got to move it to do the l sound to behind your top teeth. So please, please, please. And what I find myself doing is actually separating those two sounds out a tiny bit, just a tiny fraction of a second. Please. It's almost like 2 syllables. Don't say please, say please. Please, please. So that gives you time to move your tongue from one position to the other. And again, practice, and it becomes second nature. It becomes part of your foreign language that you're proficient and fluent in. Please. The other one that I've often had difficulty, certainly as a beginner, was the p-r sound. So let's think of a word. Practical. Practical. And again, I do the same thing. Do the p sound, p, and the r sound slightly separately. Practical. So it's practical. 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 And the faster you do that, again, you know, when you're in normal speech speed, it becomes almost invisible. You can't really tell that you're saying that, and certainly that you're struggling with it. Now that brings me on to performance, and we'll talk about that in the next video. I'll see you soon. Bye.